What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Jake, your favorite real estate investor. And today we're going to go over another episode of Flipping 101, Part 3, Securing OPM, Other People's Money to Fund the Deal. Now, we did this on Instagram stories. Gosh, it was a couple weeks ago, right, when we first started securing this stuff. I've actually already bought the property, but I took you guys through the exact process that I went through in order to secure the money. And there's a couple steps before that in order to get the money. And we took you through that as well. So let's break this down and let me educate you a little bit here. Okay. Now in part one, which you can see, you can go on my page, on my post, you'll see Flipping 101, part one. Looks just like this ugly mug down here. And we broke down how I locked in the property, where the lead came from. And by lead, I mean who sent me the property and told me that it was for sale, how I looked at the property, how I analyzed it, how I locked it in and made the offer and put it under contract and all that stuff. Now in part two, which looks like this down here, looked a little bit more pale in that picture. We went over, the construction puzzle pieces and how we put those together to make sure our numbers fit the way that we estimated that they would fit back in part one. So part two, we broke that down a little bit. Part one was probably 25 minutes. Part two was almost 12 minutes. Okay. Now part three, we're going to go over how we used parts one and part two to secure the funding for this project. This seems to be, I know it is. It doesn't just seem to be. This is the single most, the single biggest question I get about this business. Most people want to get into this business. People understand a little bit about the numbers, but they just don't understand how to do it without having $250,000 saved up. So I'm gonna break it down, how I, put everything together, how I put it in front of the lenders, everything in between on this, video. Okay. So here were the basic numbers for this deal. We put it under contract to purchase at $210,000. Our rehab budget, meaning the construction costs, $22,500. Now, by the way, side note, I get this question all the time. When we're going over the rehab budget, the numbers that I get, the numbers that I share with you on any of my, any of my posts or anything like that, comments, stories, anything like that, it includes all labor and all materials. Okay, and then the projected resale is $300,000. Okay, now I want to show you how I got all of these numbers. I have proof as to why it should sell for 300 grand. I have proof as to why the renovation budget, the rehab budget is $22,500. So let me break this bad boy down. All right. So first and foremost, right, the most important number, we went over this in part one of this Flipping 101 series. The projected resale came from $300,000 came from reading the trend of the recently sold similar properties in the neighborhood. I have a little map here, okay? So our house is this one with the little, right here, this little emoji thing, right? Like the beat up house emoji, okay? The one right around the block, all these blue marks are properties that are similar size, built in a similar year. They've all sold kind of in the neighborhood over the last 6 months, okay? So these are similar properties that have sold in the neighborhood and in the area over the last 6 months. Now this one around the block, it was a flip, right? It was a fixer. That one sold for $304, literally right around the block, almost the exact same, everything involved in the house. Now, here are the other ones. There's a $292 right here, $295, and a $285, okay? Now, in addition to that, outside of the direct neighborhood, but still within, the zip code, right? We have a bunch of other properties that are all similar to ours, same square footage, same year built, same size, all that kind of stuff. And they all sold for right around 300 as well. We see a few that sold for higher, a few that sold for lower. So that just shows us that we can, pretty confidently expect that we're gonna be able to sell this bad boy for 300 or probably a little bit higher, okay? Now, with the rehab budget, it came in at $22,500, and that came from getting contractor bids for modeling the work that the most similar top dollar selling homes had. What I mean by that, if we go back up to that map, this $304,000 flip, right? It sold for top dollar, or close to top dollar. There's a few other ones that sold for 305, 320, 315. But I'm expecting right around what that one sold for. But because real estate is trends, I want to model what this one had inside, right? My scope of work, what I'm going to do to the house, isn't some design thing that I'm going to find on Pinterest. But instead, it's going to be something that I very closely study everything else that's sold recently in the neighborhood and model the ones that sold for top dollar and that sold the quickest. There's typically trends we can get. Okay, so if you see this, right, on the top is what our property currently looks like. On the bottom is that 304, this one right here, the one that's right around the block that sold for way higher. So we're going to have to open up a wall. We're going to have to, make it so right when you walk in the door, you can see the kitchen. You have to do everything, all that stuff in between. Okay, we're going to have to make it look similar. Also, you see that this one has the flooring that goes all the way through to the kitchen. This one has grays on the wall, new windows, new doors, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we are going to need to do to the property. And in getting bids from contractors, I was showing them what this property looked like and what finishes this property had so they can give me a bid for the right type of work. Okay. So the kitchen, right, our kitchen on top will have to become the one on the bottom. So new paint, that flooring comes all the way through. We got new light fixtures, new countertops, stainless steel appliances, no need for a fridge, backsplash, everything in between. Okay. So we got to do the same thing that's working in the area. Now, this is the master bathroom. This is what's going to have to look like. A new vanity, tile that goes all the way up, tile flooring, new toilet. And here's bathroom number 2, right? We're going to have to get rid of that pink Pepto-Bismol tile. Make sure that we have all grays and neutrals in our new tile. And you guys, that one on the bottom, I mean, outside of the glasswork, that's, the shower glasswork there, this isn't that expensive to do. This is relatively inexpensive. If even these tiles, getting them at, whether it's a warehouse or even Home Depot, you can get this stuff for relatively inexpensive. It doesn't take a lot of it to put into a bathroom. Have a little fiberglass shower pan down there. I think, based on looking on this, they took a new vanity. It was probably natural wood, and they painted it gray, put some hardware on it. So this stuff doesn't cost that much to do. Although it looks nice, it doesn't mean that it's super expensive. Okay, so I put all of this information in a pretty little document, and I sent it out to a bunch of lenders. Now, the document that I put it together is called an IP, or an investor proposal. The investor proposal is one of my secret weapons. Those of you that are in the mentorship group, you guys know that the IP is something that if you send it to lenders, it does a lot of the talking for you. Even if you're nervous to talk on the phone for your first deal, if you feel like you're bad at communication, this document, we just drag and drop, right? We take the old pictures out, we put the new pictures in. We change the little verbiage. I have everything highlighted where we change it. We save it as a PDF and email it to the lenders, and it does the talking for us. It does a couple of things, right? One, it shows them that we know what we're doing. Number 2, it gives us a little bit of a wow factor in sending it to them, so they're going to come at us with their best rates, right? Because they know that if they're getting it, other people are getting it as well. But number 3, it shows that we are prepared. Whether you have a ton of experience or no experience, whether you have a ton of money in the account or no money in the account, whether you have great credit, whether you have bad credit, if you show that you've prepared, if you've taken the time to put together all the aspects of this deal, and it doesn't take a lot, of time or effort to do that, but if you take the time to just show that you know what you're doing, it becomes a lot more likely that lenders are going to be throwing their cash at you. More importantly, I guess I should rephrase that. They're going to be throwing their cash at the deal if you represent it correctly. The deal is the most important part of this business, not you, not your personal history, not my history. If you can convey to the lender that the deal is profitable, they'll put money into it, okay? Because that's their collateral. If something happens to you, they take over the property. So they need to make sure that property that they're lending on, make sure that you're getting it at a discounted rate and you have a plan. Then you could show a plan as for what you can predict to sell it for, as well as show how much work it's going to take to get from the purchase price to the resale value, okay? So the document, the IP, the investor proposal, it can be summarized by this breakdown, okay? Like, this is essentially what it says over the course of 5 pages. Hey guys, purchase price is $210,000. It's a really good deal because it'll likely resell it for $300,000, right? Here's why we came to that projection. Here's a map. Here's everything that's sold over the last 6 months in the neighborhood. Now, rehab will be $22,500. Here's what we're planning on doing with the rehab, right? Essentially, here's what the top selling properties look like. Here's what ours looks like. Here's what we're going to have to do. Here's why we're going to do that. Here's why we're expecting to sell for this price point, because we're modeling what works, okay? If we could put all that into a document, which I've pretty much already put together, if you're interested in that, hit the link in my bio, then that thing sells properties for itself, okay? Now, all of this info can be shown by sharing what I shared with you in the previous slides. And I know that there's a little typo, right here on what, but all of the stuff that I just showed you over the last couple minutes that we put this thing together and I'm recording this, all of this stuff goes in. Obviously it's consumed differently because I'm putting it together as a PDF and sending it to a lender rather than putting it out on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, right? So you package it a little bit differently, but I just went over the information that I need to make sure a lender has, right? What I'm buying it for, what I plan to sell it for, why I plan it to sell for that price point, why I'm certain that it's going to sell for that price point, and what I need to do to get it into condition that it's going to sell for that price point based on what's working in the neighborhood. If I could show all of them that, then it's on like Donkey Kong, okay? So lenders began, I sent it to quite a few lenders. They began reaching out to me with all their questions, all their best offers, the rate they wanted to charge me to take their cash to flip this house. And yeah, I said that correctly. They were hitting me up and trying to battle and compete with each other. They're literally fighting each other. Well, they weren't physically beating each other up, but they're battling each other, trying to compete in order to give me the best rate possible. So I would choose them to give me their cash so I could flip the house. Okay. That's how this game works. And I know that people are like, oh, BS. I've done over 800 of these the same exact way. It happens like this every time, as long as the numbers are on point and you convey those numbers correctly to the lender, sky's the limit. Okay. So of course I do one of these Bitmojis here. Cash me outside. How about that? I don't know what that means. I'm 35 years old. I've kind of heard what that means, but I'm just showing like, hey, the cash started flowing toward me because I put everything together in a way where I conveyed that I had value, and lenders wanted to get a piece of the action, okay? So some of the lenders wanted to fund the entire thing, right? Give me all the money I needed in exchange for a profit share, meaning, if I'm making 50 grand, if there's 42 grand on the deal, they get a percentage of the profit and I get a percentage of the profit. Like they would get 50%, I would get 50%. They would get 25%, I would keep 75%, okay? That's a profit share. It's also sometimes called an equity share. Now, some of the lenders wanted to fund different percentages of the deal for a cash-on-cash return, meaning, let's say I needed $100,000, and this is just an example. This doesn't apply to this property, but we're going to make it nice and even. Let's say I needed 100 grand, or they were willing to give me 100 grand. A cash-on-cash return means they want 10% straight up or 20% straight up. If it's 10% straight up and they're lending us 100 grand, that means regardless of whether it takes 2 months to flip the house or 8 months to flip the house, they're getting 10% back on top of their investment. So at 100 grand, they get 110 grand back, right? 100 grand of their investment back, 10 grand is 10% of that. If it's a 20% cash-on-cash return, whether it takes 2 months or 8 months, they get their 100 grand back plus 20 grand on top of that, okay? Regardless of the time, that's a cash-on-cash return. Now, some lenders wanted to fund different percentages of the deal for an annual rate of return. Now, if I'm using the $100,000 example, and it's an annual rate of return, let's say 100 grand, and they're charging me 12% annual. There's 12 months in a year, so that's 1% per month that I'm using the funds. So if the project takes me 5 months, they're going to charge me 5% on those funds. If it takes eight months, they're going to charge me 8%, right? And typically, some of them, they require a monthly payment every month. Some of them are willing to defer the interest, meaning if I borrow their 100 grand and it takes 5 months, then when I sell the property, they get their 100 grand back, plus they give that 5 grand right there. Some of them, they want the monthly interest payment, and that's fine. That just means they get, I buy the property, they get $1,000 a month, right? 1% per month because it's 12% annual. So there's different ways of structuring this stuff. And everything's negotiable in this business. So I had a bunch of people reaching out, trying to get at me at different angles, trying to figure out what they needed to do to get the deal, okay? So I ended up picking 2 different lenders, okay, that wanted to fund different percentages of the deal for an annual rate of return payable when I resell the home. And let me give you a little bit more information on what that means. One lender was willing to fund 90% of what I needed, okay, and they wanted a monthly payment. Okay, they wanted, it was 9% annual, so they want like 0.75%, every month on the first of every month. But the second lender came in and funded the additional 10%, right? Essentially the down payment. But they don't want a monthly rate, and they're funding all my payments for 6 months to the big lender that wants the monthly payment. But the second lender doesn't necessarily require a monthly payment. They're fine with me paying them in full, plus all their accrued interest at the end of the day. So both of the lenders that are in there, they both want an annual rate of return, meaning they get more interest the longer that they stay in the deal. And it's payable ultimately, because the smaller lender is covering the first lender's interest, and that second lender that's covering that cash flow gets paid at the end. That truly is $0 out of my own pocket in order to make this deal happen, which is a pretty freaking good day. Okay. So here's what it looked like without the lenders. Purchase a property for $210, rehab costs of $22,500, holding costs, which is vacant property insurance, HOA fees, so vacant property, utilities, stuff like that. So just blanked myself there. And then closing costs is usually, there's a title company or an escrow company. It's a third party that coordinates the transaction when you buy or sell a deal. Typically, that's between 1% and 2% of the transaction amount. Transaction amount was $210,000. So closing costs about $3,000. So if you add these four up, we have a total project cost of $237,500 for us to buy the house and bring it to a point where we're ready to resell it. Now, if we resell it for $300,000, which I think we'll resell it for more, but let's say, we get a little bit less than that one around the block. Realtors get a commission out of that. If the deal closes, they take some of it before anything gets to me, as well as there's closing costs on the resale, right? Same, it's between 1% and 2% of the transaction amount. So in this scenario, if we sell it for $300,000, the realtors and the title company all get their little cut of things. Then whatever's left over comes back. Okay, so if I put $237,500 into the deal and resell it for $300,000, I get $281,000 out of the deal. There's pure profit for me at the end of the day, $43,500. Now, this does not include lender fees, but if I was to put in, $237,500, I'd be able, for 5 months, be able to get paid that money back plus $43,500 on top of that. Now, I am not using my own money, but if I did bring in almost $250,000 to the table, still be able to make a decent rate of return. I mean, that's almost 20% cash on cash return. If that takes 6 months, that's almost 40% annual rate of return, okay? Which is really good. You're not getting that in the stock market, that's for sure, okay? But let's look at it with lenders involved, okay? So the pure profit, remember, if I didn't have anybody involved, just the pure numbers gave me a profit of $43,500. And the estimated lender fees based on, me holding the property for 5 months or so, paying my monthly interest payment to the big lender, and then paying, my little bit of interest at the end of the day to the small lender, right? Let's say that's about $11,000. That's what I'm projecting if this takes the amount of time that I think it's going to take. That means I have a net profit of $32,500 putting $0 into the deal. Literally, rather than putting $250,000, figuring out how to do $250,000 and getting $40,000 or $43,000, instead I'm putting 0 into the deal and making $32,000. I'll take that over putting $250,000 in every day of the week. This is how I run this business. This is how I teach this business. And a lot of people don't even understand that this business can be run in a way where you can bring $0 to the table, still provide value to a lender, still get paid tens of thousands of dollars once everything sells. But this is it, you guys. This is a real life property that I just bought. So, and the best part is I'll never step foot inside of the house. I'm going to stay here 500 miles away. That's why real estate agents get paid. That's why contractors get paid. I ain't a contractor. I ain't a real estate agent. I don't even use my own money. When I do this, I work smart. I work a little hard too, or else I wouldn't be able to do the volume that I'm doing. And I'll be able to do these over and over and over without ever stepping foot inside. It's a pretty cool deal, and everybody that's involved gets paid. Okay? So all that's left, or at the point of me putting this together a couple weeks ago, was I have lender documents to sign. I need to FedEx those lender documents 600 miles away to the title company, and then wait for that bad boy to close so my contractor could get started. So I did that a couple weeks ago. The property actually closed, and I bought it using other people's money last week, and the contractor's getting started this week. I'm excited about it. And the way that I do it is just after I put that together, everybody kind of has their role. I trust everybody in the roles that I put them in. As you can see in parts 1 and 2, like we really have a process. It's almost like a systematic process in putting the right people in the right place and making sure that just in case a worst case scenario happens, we have people to back them up. Okay, so that's what we did. I let the good people do the good work, and then on to the next one. So you guys, if you're interested in doing this yourself, if you're interested in flipping houses using other people's money from hundreds, if not thousands of miles away, if you want to do it as a part-time side hustle, if you want to do it as a full-time thing, right? If you want to use all of your own money or none of your own money, if you want to learn the game or scale up your current business, hit the link in my bio. It's theflipsecrets.com/mentor. Get on a call with either me or someone on my team. We show you how to schedule that call once you submit your information. And ask us questions. I'm more than happy to kind of reveal some of the secrets over the call. And if it's a good fit, we'd love to have you in the group. The group is not for everyone, but it's something where we teach everything from finding the deal to funding the deal, to fixing it up, to flipping it, and to getting paid, or to turning it into a rental. Every single step of the process, every tool, every calculator, every IP template, everything that I use is in this program, and I also give you one-on-one help and support. If you're interested in that, again, link in the bio, or go to theflipsecrets.com/mentor. All right, y'all. See you on the flip side. There's so much opportunity out there. I at least hope that you're looking at real estate a little bit differently, because this bad boy changed my life. All right. Talk to you guys later. Take it easy.